secondary because of the kinds of players you have or because of the kind of football team you have?
Well, in the case of our running back, we didn't do the allocating. He did the allocating from that standpoint. And the same thing goes with the quarterback. So if you're fortunate enough to have players like that, then you just hang on and work around them from the standpoint of the salary cap. Deion Sanders is pretty much the same way. But certainly when you have the highest paid quarterback, highest paid running back, highest paid fullback, maybe the highest paid receivers and a couple of tackles, something's got to give. Then you have to look at what your system and your scheme allows you to maybe cover up a little bit.
What about the future, though? I mean, how long can you keep this up? We know you have Aikman locked up and Deion Sanders and Michael Irvin, but can you keep replacing those other players and stay at the top?
Yeah, we feel real good about the players that we've drafted over the last 3 years, and if you would include this year's draft. We've got players, Eric Bjornsson, that should be coming along as we go, but not to mention all of them. But yeah, we're satisfied that we've got young players that are allowing us to sign a Darren Woodson. And of course, that's the challenge, and hopefully that'll keep us competing. But boy, I'll take the challenge any time to try to figure out a way to keep Darren Woodsons and Deion Sanders and Troy Aikman.
Yeah, especially coming off a Super Bowl. I know you have a couple more picks here. We got to let you go. But let's take a look in the war room moments ago when you drafted another defensive player. Just tell us, you're with Dave Campo, defensive coordinator. You're looking at a book here, and maybe tell us what's in that book and what's going on.
Well, that's probably a common book around the NFL, and it basically gives the entire profile of a player. The comments about him since he's been a junior. We're a member of a combine of as many as 10 teams that we get their grading reports. Those are our scouts' comments, and those are our coaches' comments. And it's always good to review that, revisit that information right before you're considering a pick. And that's what we basically were doing there, reviewing. There was no new information there. You just needed to, maybe you're looking for some mental support or some courage to go ahead and decide, well, we'll go with that guy.
All right, well, thanks again. Thanks for letting us peek in the war room again, too.
Thank you, Chris. Good to have you with us.
Jerry Jones of the Cowboys. Let's go back to Mike Tirico in New York.
Chris, Jerry, thank you very much. So free agency, as you heard earlier, big impact on Dallas. It impacts you if you're great, impacts you if you didn't have a so great season. For free agency, it's a godsend or a nightmare, depending on your year before.
Thank God for free agency for us as far as some of the things that we had to solve, some of the problems I think we have. I think made an impact in free agency and helped our football team a great deal.
I think you only have to look at a few teams in the league that have maybe gone into free agency very, very hard to see that maybe they're not getting all they want to get out of it.
I think chemistry is something you just can never buy. That's something you have to really work on. That's gained through one another in the locker room. That's where it's tough on free agents.
Free agency has been a bittersweet situation for us because, on the one hand, I would be less than honest if I were to say that free agency didn't help us win the Super Bowl in 1994. As a matter of fact, there's probably a strong argument to be made that we couldn't have won the Super Bowl in 1994 without the help of the free agents that we brought on board. On the other hand, free agency is knocking the underpinnings out from under the family-like structure that the 49er organization has built over the years.
Free agency has had an impact, there's no question. It's allowed teams at the bottom to build faster. I don't think there's any question, but that it has robbed teams at the top of valued depth and in some cases valued starters, in a lot of cases valued starters.
A lot of people say good for the players. Some people say bad for the fans. What's your read on it?
Well, I think it is bad for the fans because if you look at other than Dallas, and I guess San Francisco that have been in the championship and been in the Super Bowls, you don't look at those players because they have the hardware, so you're able to move on now for the money. I think there are a lot of free agencies, for instance, Bryce Pop, who would have loved to stay in Green Bay, but just didn't have the opportunity to do so.
I think it's made the draft that much more critical. I think when you look at what the Miami Dolphins have lost in free agency, and they haven't been able to really go out and sign a lot of players, that's why Jimmy Johnson needs a strong draft this year to get that team back up to where they have to be. And I think if you look at the teams that have gone to the Super Bowl or won the Super Bowl in recent years, you always go back to the draft, not necessarily free agency as the key indicator as to what got a team to that level.
Let's get Mark Malone in on this conversation. Mark, let's just take it from the perspective of a Jet fan. You weren't going to get in the draft Neil O'Donnell, David Williams, Jumbo Elliott. You would not have had the opportunities that the Jets have taken advantage of to rebuild a pathetic offense from last year.
Oh, there's no doubt about it, Mike. I mean, this is the great equalizer in the NFL. It allows teams like New York Jets, as you mentioned, to become competitive almost instantly, but it does. It robs from other teams. I think teams that are successful in this league overall are teams that identify their core players with talent at an early age in their first couple of years, 3 years, and then sign them to long-term deals and try to lock those players up. Pittsburgh has been successful by doing that, as well as Dallas for the most part. You can go ahead and take a player to help you get over the hump, maybe put you to that next level if you've lost some people in free agency. But I agree with John Butler. You cannot buy team chemistry. That's what wins championships, and all you have to do is look down to Miami last year, and that'll tell you all about what chemistry does and doesn't do. You can't win championships unless you can develop that with players over a long-term period of time. Mike?
Yeah, those nearly 21st-round draft picks that were assembled onto the Miami roster couldn't find the chemistry to come together, at least in last year's set of circumstances. Let's bring the conversation to our ESPN headquarters and check in with Chris Fowler.
Mike, that's an excellent point that Carmen Policy made. Not only does it penalize success by robbing the best teams of players, it really does make it tough to have that cohesive unit year after year after year, and I think it has an impact on the fans, Mike Lombardi, who don't get to see their players play year after year. You could almost say it's almost like a communist system. I mean, from each according to its ability, to each according to its need. It does make it almost impossible to stay at the top year after year. That's why you have to credit the Niners and the Cowboys.
Oh, I think the Niners are clear indication. I mean, no matter what system since 1979 through now, they've been able to maintain excellence, which I believe is the hardest thing to do in the league. They've never had that bad season to really cause them some problems. They've been able to maintain excellence at a very high level, and that's really a great tribute to their organization.
Well, if free agency is a nightmare for the most successful teams, how do you deal with it?
Well, I think what you have to do is you've got to draft well. You've got to have player development, which is critical. You've got to be able to find players somewhere through the draft, signing on the street free agents, and develop them. You have to have a coaching staff that's willing to develop young players, that's willing to take the time needed to bring those players along. So that tied together with a little bit of free agency. I think the California Angels proved you can't buy a championship. We've looked at baseball, saw how they did it when the Yankees were spending all that money for their players, and they've gone back to a different scheme. I think baseball really leads us to believe how we can win here, and baseball's a great lesson for us to learn what they did in free agency.
And as Mark Malone pointed out, Miami has learned that same lesson in the NFL. The other side of free agency, of course, is the salary cap and trying to deal with getting players under very strict conditions that the league has set down, again with the idea of equalizing the playing field. You used to be the capologist for the Cleveland Browns. Is that an essential component of a team, and what do teams look for in a capologist? Is it a personnel guy? Is it strictly a business, a numbers guy?
Well, I think you've got to evaluate the talent. We're a little bit like appraisers. You're going to have to put a certain dollar value on the talent. I think the key thing is to have a good team. It's not so important to have cap room. It's important to have a good team. You can have a lot of cap room, but not have a good team, and therefore it's costing you a lot of money to go out and sign free agents. I think the teams that are tight on the cap have good teams, and they've worked their way around finding other players to add to it. The other key, have a good quarterback so that you can fit other pieces, and I think Dallas and San Francisco has been able to do that, build around their quarterback. They don't have to go out and get that.
If you're going to succeed, know how to manage the cap. If you're going to be a successful agent at this day and age, you better know how to manipulate the cap as well. There are some guys who are available if you want to open your checkbook in this offseason. The best available players, 96 free agency, as we continue our draft coverage after this.
Look who's winning at McDonald's. Joanne Pearson won an IBM Aptiva computer. Mike White won a Disney video. Come play the Disney Video Masterpiece Collection Trivia Challenge today at McDonald's. You could be next. Look who's winning at McDonald's. Pamela Donnelly won $1 million. Jerry Kenny won $100,000. Come play the Disney Video Masterpiece Collection Trivia Challenge today at McDonald's. You could be next.
I'm thrifty. Savings count. So I went with some long-distance company I'd never even heard of. Wacky restrictions and all. Hey, once bitten, twice shy. So now I have AT&T True Reach Savings. Any type of call, 25% off. Proof's on the bill.
AT&T True Reach Savings. Save 25% on all types of U.S. calls on your AT&T phone bill when you spend just $25 a month.
Can't miss.
Savings on all kinds of calls. That's your true choice, AT&T.
Natural ability can only take you so far. Equipment counts for a lot. I'm always checking out new ideas. You have to stay competitive. That's what I like about Pert Plus. Cleans and conditions in one step. No messing with 2 bottles. I get great results. No hassle, no fuss. Eventually, we all cross the finish. The winners just find a better way to get there.